It's about to get started. Okay, I think it's live now. Oh, did that work? I think works. Okay. Yeah, so Devin, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and then the topic, and then we'll begin the discussion?
Sure, yeah. My name is Devin. I'm currently a student studying at Stanford. I'm in my final year. Um, I'm majoring in international relations, but I'm currently working on a project related to public transit development in the Bay Area, in the peninsula. And so yeah, today thanks for your time. I'd love to just get some of your thoughts on kind of the state of public transportation in Palo Alto specifically, as well as some vision for the future and some of your thoughts around that.
Yeah. It's actually kind of an interesting time for Palo Alto. So I don't do you know the history of public transit in Palo Alto, or do you know?
More or less, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so Palo Alto a long time ago used to have its own bus system. And so we had a whole bunch of routes all over our city. And then many years ago, like this is way before I was on council, Palo Alto merged services with VTA. And so Palo Alto no longer had its own bus service. And the way VTA was set up was pretty much the larger city, which is San Jose, has all the votes. They basically what they've been doing over the past few decades is basically moving all of the bus routes from places like Palo Alto, or what they call North County, North Santa Clara County, to San Jose. So San Jose has been getting excellent service for bus routes, and then all the northern cities, because each one of us is too small, has pretty much been getting less and less bus routes. And um, so in terms of bus service, our transit's kind of sucked wind because of that. And in fact, I've proposed that we should just pull out of VTA because we basically don't get anything out of it. I mean, our bus service has been chopped, kept getting chopped and chopped and chopped, and so we have less and less and less. So it's not good. So that's on the bus side. On the um, train side, we've had two stations, and we're fortunate because Palo Alto's an old city, right? So we've been around for a long time, so we've had those two train stations for a long time. Palo Alto remains the second busiest after San Francisco, so it's still a very popular station. So we're good in that respects, but in terms of bus service, it's pretty bad. Palo Alto used to have something called a cross town shuttle, which would essentially serve as a bus system for our kids. So we don't actually have busing for our kids. We have busing for East Palo Alto kids, but not for our Palo Alto kids, which is a different county and different city from Palo Alto. And um, and so the bus service for our kids is uh, something called the Crosstown Shuttle. So a lot of kids use that to take and we did that especially because of VTA. And then most recently we instituted something called Palo Alto Link. I'm not sure if you've seen those green and white like vans or cars driving around. Uh, and what that was basically like a subsidized Uber, except we had our own fleet of cars and it was crazy expensive. We spent like I think it started like $40 per ride, so it was really expensive because I just flew back from flew into SFO, so I took the Uber back, and that's like 40. I could have gone to SFO for the amount of money it would take us, and it would stay just within Palo Alto. So and then we have a multimodal station at Caltrain as well. We have a Caltrain there. We have a Caltrain plus a bus service, and we're looking to expand that as well. So that's actually was a ballot measure. So that's the little history, and then kind of like most current stuff is we're looking at trying to extend Palo Alto Link because right now Palo Alto Link we're running out of money. We got some money from the county to get it started, but we don't have enough money to keep it going for much longer. And we're trying to do that by partnering up with other companies, kind of like a public-private partnership. And so we've had some discussions with Tesla for their self-driving taxi service. So that's kind of like all the stuff that's been going on for public transit.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. And when you talk about, potentially pulling out of the VTA,
Mhm.
just to prioritize bus routes and bus services that serve Palo Alto more directly, I guess, can you talk about a little bit like what that looks like, and how that might be designed in a way to incentivize, or in a way that's complementary to Caltrain and in a way that best serves the needs of Palo Alto specifically?
Well, I think that I think transit going is changing. It's changing for several big reasons. One of them is self-driving is almost here, right? I mean, I think a lot of Teslas now have full self-driving, and while not perfect, it's getting there. So I think that's one thing. I think the other aspect is, um, micromobility, right? So all these cheap electric vehicles, right? I have electric skateboard and these electric scooters and electric bikes has really changed transit. So I think where you once had to have a car or a bus or something like that, you don't necessarily have to have that anymore. Especially given like our weather. Our weather is like, you know, pretty pretty good in general. It doesn't rain too much and it's not too cold. And also our terrain's pretty flat. So it's pretty ideal for that kind of stuff. Um, but so I don't know whether like traditional public transit makes as much sense versus like a scooter share program. So about 4 years ago, council unanimously approved a scooter share program. But staff has been very reluctant to roll it out because they're worried about blowback from the public. So our staff is very risk adverse. So even though the council said do it, staff has been pretty much dragging their heels on this one. And so they haven't done it. But I think they could do that. If they did scooter share, I think it would be wonderful because that way you could go to Caltrain and then the last mile you could take a scooter share, right?
Mhm.
But um, but staff has just been very reluctant to move forward on it. Um, yeah, and then I think the other thing that's changing is, like I said, the autonomous driving. Um, or if forget autonomous driving, if you just like use Uber or Lyft. In our case, we used Palo Alto Link, which is our own car service, so we have our own like 10 or 20 cars. It's just expensive and it's very limited because we have our full-time drivers, can't be used for anything else. Versus if you do, let's say, what Las Vegas does and you subsidize the usage of Uber or Lyft, that I think that's a better way. It wouldn't cost us so much because you could, you know, like I said, $40 you could go to San Francisco all the way to SF for that amount of money. Versus if you use Uber or Lyft, it's a fraction of that. So I think um, traditional public transit stuff I think is just changing because of all this.
Hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned that the Palo Alto link only goes like sort of within Palo Alto. So then,
Yeah, it doesn't even go to Stanford. It's kind of crazy, right?
oh, really? Okay, so
Yeah.
it's like pretty
And
limited.
then not only that, because we run out of money, we used to it was kind of like our ad hoc bus service for our kids. And then my colleagues voted to not allow kids to use it. So yeah, so it's like becoming even more limited, right?
Hmm.
And we greatly increased the price of it as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So I guess in a future, ideally, it would be more used to service like people connecting within Palo Alto and to Caltrain, or also to go to other sort of like North Santa Clara kind of cities.
Well, if Tesla does it, they want to do it more than just Palo Alto. So it would maybe just start here in Palo Alto, but they talked about going to Stanford, they talked about going to Mountain View, a few other places. So, and Tesla's engineering headquarters is in Palo Alto, so it's very convenient for them because they want to have this taxi service. Um, they need to test it out, right? So they need like X number of self-driving miles, right? So Palo Alto is a place for them to test this technology out.
And then I also saw something that on your website about undergrounding Caltrain, and I
Oh
was wondering,
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess, what the vision for that is, and like kind of what you see the cost benefit of that project being.
yeah. Uh, underground is really expensive, but what's even more expensive is the lawsuits. So, um, and you look at the high-speed rail. Like we've spent billions and billions. I forgot how much now. It's like so much money, and we built like almost nothing. And the reason why is because of all the litigation, right? All of the red tape. And so, while undergrounding technically is expensive, I think because it avoids so many lawsuits, so much avoiding all these other kind of issues, um, it is actually not that expensive. And like so, for instance, like we're talking about grade separation here in Palo Alto at some of the intersections, we
Hmm.
would have to wipe out some of the houses nearby in order to do it. So you can imagine all those houses that are going to get wiped out are going to fight tooth and nail, right? They're not going to just let the house be taken, right? Um, so, uh, so by undergrounding, you avoid all that kind of red tape and political resistance. But the other thing is whenever you go to anywhere kind of expensive where the land's very, very expensive, and Paul also has some of the most expensive land in the world, you usually underground transit. You usually don't leave it above ground. So you just look around anywhere in the world where real estate has our kind of prices, it's always undergrounded. And the reason why is you could do what's called value capture. You could basically monetize the land above, and that pays for the undergrounding. So for so many reasons it makes sense, but I mean there's kind of like a lack of imagination and political will to do this. Um, and also like if you do it like for the whole Bay Area, right? From let's say San Jose all the way to San Francisco, it's not that expensive. Now, of course, we do it just for Palo Alto, it could be very, very expensive. But if we do it all the way from San Jose to San Francisco, then you think about like I think just in Palo Alto alone, we would get something like I don't know, 70 acres of land, right? I mean, if you just look at how much you know like a square foot of land. Actually, 70 acres. Oh no, is it six? I forgot the calculation, but it's on my website. But it's like a tremendous amount of land gets freed up because you have the width of the tracks, the width of the right of way, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and then all the way up, and that's like 50 miles or something like that, right? To San Francisco. Um, so like you basically create a bunch of land and land's in prime location, like downtowns, right? So it's worth a lot. And yeah, and the stations could also be would also be underground, right? So you don't have all that space could be people could build sky rises or like apartments or retail or commercial, right? To help monetize and pay for all the land that gets freed up. Or you can make it into linear parks, right? There's a lot of things you could do.
Mhm.
So I think that's really the right solution because otherwise I think we're just going to keep talking about high-speed rail and that's this is one reason um, why high-speed rail hasn't happened, especially here in California, is because the EIRs, right, environmental impact reports, and just it's basically illegal to do anything in California. So we spent billions, like what, 100 billion or some crazy figure on high-speed rail, and nothing to show for it, right? I think we got like 100 feet or something, something totally ridiculous. I forgot what it is, but it's like a super small, short span of high-speed rail in the middle of nowhere. It goes nowhere, right? It's embarrassing.
Do you know if the California High Speed Rail Authority floated the idea of undergrounding the San Jose San Francisco segment?
Um, I think I think people are always worried about how much it costs,
Hmm.
right? And in my view, the technical cost is probably the like the smallest portion of cost. Like, I mean, it's different. If you were anywhere else in the world, the technical cost is actually really important consideration. But in California, okay, we're like the regulation capital of the world, right? And so um, the soft costs dominate all the costs. It's not the hard costs, like not the hard cost of undergrounding.
Hmm.
So, and people always think about the hard costs, but like, that we built a bike bridge across the 101. Like this is a few years ago. It's a pedestrian bike bridge. This is kind of near San Antonio, like kind of like in South Palo Alto. I think that thing took like 10 years to get the building itself only took like a year and a half or something, like 2 years, right? But the whole process took like 10 years. And we spent the soft cost, I think, totally dominated it, right? I mean, we had design shreds, we had, a lot of different designs, a lot of community meetings, a lot of talk, this and that. But um and I forgot how much the total it was. It was maybe 10, maybe 15 million. I don't know. I forgot the exact amount, but majority of that was soft cost.
Hmm.
So when people talk about like, undergrounding, I mean, but what people forget is all the soft costs. The soft cost is what eats up everything in California, right? It's like the high-speed rail. Like most of that money wasn't built, wasn't that, incredibly short span of tracks that they finally put down. That wasn't the majority of the cost. That wasn't where all the hundreds of billion dollars went. They went to all the lawyers and all the, public meetings and all the super high price consultants and all that kind of stuff. That's where all of the money went, right? And
Hmm.
so and so it's kind of like what you say, it's like penny wise, pound foolish, right? Sure, we you know, maybe we're trying to optimize for the hard cost, but that's not the cost. That's for public construction, that's not the dominant factor, right? The dominant factor is the soft cost, right? It's like in China, they built like in the time we've been talking about high-speed rail in California, they built like 100,000 miles
Hmm.
of high-speed rail, and they built it at a fraction of the cost that we. I mean, they could have built it like 10 times over already, but not we spent on high-speed rail.
Well, yeah, that's true. I've seen it all over the Bay Area, and it's a recurring theme. Yeah, I don't want to take too much more of your time, so thank you
Yeah,
for
of
talking
course.
with me. I know
Yeah,
like a lot of these issues are tough, but I'm glad that someone in government is thinking about them. So it's great to hear your
they're
thoughts.
actually not that tough, but I mean, technically they're not tough at all, but it's
Politically
hard,
tough, maybe.
politically tough,
Yeah.
yes, because it's hard to make everyone happy, right? And we have a
Yeah.
very deliberative process. Now in China, there's no deliberation at all. They're really fast and efficient, but sometimes homes get wiped out.
Hmm. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, great talking to you.
absolutely. Okay, have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye.